Welcome to BoxingInfo. I'm your host, The Islander. I know it's been about almost a whole year since the last time I made a video, and I was trying very hard to make a video to preview this past weekend's fight and fight card, as well as several others, but circumstances have prevent me from doing it. And I need to explain something also, is that as you know, I've been very dissatisfied with the way that YouTube has been making changes to the channel, making changes to even how you comment on videos and respond to them, and the trees and the links of how they kind of keep categorizing comments and things like that. So a lot of that stuff has been very much a turnoff, and coupled with that, I've also been turning my attention to a lot of other things. And as far as like combat sports are concerned, I mean, I still watch and still care about boxing. I just think that my interest and desire with it has dwindled greatly when I've come to several different conclusions and epiphanies about this. And for those of you who have been loyal and been with me since 2007, my apologies. I shouldn't let my mental outlook on this sport really deprive you of some type of debate or opinion about what's happening or what is happening. I just sometimes get the feel that a lot of other people share my view on this also. And you're probably asking, so what have I been doing in the past year as far as watching boxing, watching sports in general? And the thing is that for some strange reason, the UFC has been growing on me, and it's not growing on me like boxing has grown and taken over my DNA, but it's grown on me for several reasons. And one is, and I'm not going to get into it really in true detail. Look, it's very simple. There's 7 divisions, there's 7 champions. The best usually fight the best. There's some controversy, not much, but the thing that's very attractive about the UFC, that used to be very attractive to boxing when I was getting into it 30 years ago, is that with the UFC, I could watch any fight and really not be certain what's going to happen. That the ending can be a surprise at any time. And with boxing, what's been happening to me gradually over the years, and this is even before I started making YouTube videos, is that it's become very predictable. The fights that are being made, or they're going to be made, are very predictable. Now, there is some news recently which may change a lot of that, but the fights, when they're made, you can look at it and say this is very predictable. Now, occasionally you're going to have an anomaly or something that happens that's out of the ordinary, and that's usually when we're pleasantly surprised. Okay, now that that's done, that's the reason why I haven't made a video in a year. I've been basically very disenchanted with what's been going on, and more so, my attention's been caught by something else. The recent news, which ties into this past weekend's super pay-per-view card in Las Vegas with Floyd Mayweather Jr. unifying WBC and WBA welterweight titles with Mayweather-Maidana, revolves around the story I read about Golden Boy Promotions. And Oscar DelaHoya, I guess, has been serving or is serving his second stint in alcohol and drug rehab, with never a good thing. And with that being said, I was unaware of a rift that has developed between he and Richard Schaffer, who is pretty much been the acting face or CEO of the company and been very involved in the operations as fights and cards are being made and negotiated with other promoters, or within signing fighters and things of that nature. A story basically was reported that Oscar DelaHoya has a drastic difference of opinion in the direction of the company, and that it's his company and he is fully planning on taking charge of it. That he's the majority shareholder in it. And what you're probably asking yourself, if you're not privy to this article, what does that mean? Or if I'm late in getting to this article, what does that really mean? According to the article that I read, Oscar DelaHoya wants very badly to make fights between Golden Boy fighters and top rank fighters. The article went on to say that DelaHoya met privately with Bob Arum to try to bury the hatchet with what's been going on between the two companies for several years now. The problem exists here, and that is Richard Schaffer has publicly vowed never to work with Bob Arum and never to work with Top Rank. this one ideal of Richard Schaffer has basically attracted Floyd Mayweather to Golden Boy. And Floyd Mayweather has gone on record as saying that he will not fight for Golden Boy if Richard Schaffer is basically not involved. Richard Schaffer is like this with Mayweather, and more importantly with Al Haymon. And a lot of the success of Heyman's fighters, like an Adrian Broner, like all the other fighters that Haymon represents, are because of that relationship between Schaffer and Haymon, and even Mayweather, which I'm not discounting because his opinion matters greatly in this. So the article went on to say that DelaHoya wants to do what's best for boxing. Now understand this, and those of you who know me and have had conversation outside the videos privately, and know the certain kind of politics that I am enamored with, or the ideals that I'm enamored with, will tell you first thing about politicians and about guys like DelaHoya. What they say is far less important than what they do. So he says he wants to do what's best for boxing, which is reach out to Arum, bury the hatchet, and basically move fighters together and make the fights. What I get and what I translate from that article is that DelaHoya and Golden Boy in particular see that Manny Pacquiao can fight fights against other top-ranked fighters and still make 8-figure paydays. Now, you might think, well, you know, making $10 million is nothing compared to Floyd Mayweather making $32 million, which is true, but you got to understand something. There's not the big horsing around that it takes to make a Mayweather fight than it is to line up Pacquiao against Timothy Bradley, or against, you know, his last fight, you know, in Macau. I mean, those were, you know, just slapped together like that by Top Rank, and you know, basically there's no drama. The fights go off. You know, they're not the greatest fights in the world, but you know, they come off and they're financial successes. I think DelaHoya sees this, and DelaHoya knows that even if he matches his what I call B-level fighters against Top Rank's B-level or A-level fighters, there's a lot more money to be made. I don't know what Richard Schaffer's deal is with Top Rank, because you know, DelaHoya's rift with Top Rank predates Schaffer ever coming into our consciousness. So I guess the silver lining in this is that if DelaHoya is true to his word, which he hasn't always been, and he bumps Richard Schaffer off, or they come to an agreement that they're going to work with Top Rank, then fights like Nonito Donaire versus Abner Mares and so on and so forth are going to be more readily made. You know, fights with Guillermo Rigondeaux and Golden Boy fighters, you know, are going to more readily be made. In any event, please excuse that. It's a win-win for everybody if this actually is true. The article did come from a very reliable source, and like I said, it's probably old news. Alright, now that I've wasted 8 minutes on this, I do want to you know, tell you that you know, I've missed several really good fights, really good cards and things like that over the past year. But again, as I get back to this predictability thing between MMA, UFC, and boxing, you have Bernard Hopkins fighting Babur Shumanov. The fight's made. I can tell you what's going to happen. Okay, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. Okay, what happened happened. End of story. Okay, you know, Pacquiao basically, with one or two anxious moments, you know, in my mind, whitewashes Timothy Bradley a second time. Okay, and the judges got it right this time. Okay, not taking anything away from Timothy Bradley. He's an A-rated, A-level fighter. But predictability is what I'm telling you. Now, that brings us to last weekend's card, where I think 42 sports writers were polled, and 42 to nothing predicted Mayweather was going to beat Maidana. Okay, back up to December. Adrian Broner's just been crowned WBA welterweight champion by taking Paulie Malignaggi's paper title. and he's in with Maidana. And this is thought to be, okay, this is going to be a real showcase fireworks fight, and the wrong guy wins. And Maidana mauled his way to victory, knocked Rough Broner up pretty good, and everybody thought, okay, he could break through somebody's, some good defense and some good skills. Mayweather sees this. There's obviously some discomfort and rift within the Golden Boy ranks because Amir Khan thinks he deserves a fight with Mayweather. Okay, Maidana wins the Mayweather sweepstakes. I'm not complaining about this. They make the fight. I think it's intriguing, in some way, shape, or form. But if I was to make a preview video, I would have told you that there was a halfway decent chance that Mayweather was probably going to stop him because he gets hit with shots when he's like wide open, and he's been put to the floor before. Showtime, for their credit, kept making reference to the first Jose Luis Castillo fight, and there were a lot of parallels to that fight with a couple of exceptions. One is, when the fight, if I had made a preview video, I would have told you Mayweather was going to win the fight fairly handily. Maybe not as handily as he did against Canelo or against Ghost Guerrero or against Mosley or any of the previous fights, but I thought he'd have maybe a couple of competitive rounds and then pull away, no matter what Maidana did. Now, going back to the card, Adrian Broner beat Carlos Molina and showed he's the guy that's going to be going to white tie White House meetings, state dinners with his very classy demeanor. And look, he is who he is. He's a very skilled, talented fighter. I think that he's, we may or may not have seen the best of him yet. And personally, I'd like to see him in with Mayweather. Then we had Amir Khan against Luis Collazo, which was a fight that I was very disappointed with. As most of you know, the unpredictable happened when Luis Collazo knocked out Victor Ortiz in a fight that most of you, including myself, thought that Victor Ortiz basically got hit, hurt, and I wouldn't say take a dive, but just stayed down when he could have got himself up. So Collazo's back into the mix, and this was a very disappointing fight. And I'm going to tell you just from watching it what I really think happened. I think Collazo thought that he had this crazy one-punch knockout power, which he had never exhibited before that I've seen, and that he was going to base. And Khan has always had the proverbial weak chin, which we have seen recently, and that those two things were going to mesh, and Collazo was going to be the knockout victor. And that's the way he fought. And I can't tell you how disappointed I am in his performance, because I think that if he would have used his boxing skills and his feet and his jab and his side-to-side head movement and the things that made him a very good slick boxer that gave Ricky Hatton all sorts of trouble, I think that fight would have been far more competitive than it was. I don't know if he would have won. I will say this for Khan, I think that he looked a lot more steadier at 147 pounds. As he's gone up from 135, where he got absolutely obliterated by Bradis Prescott, up to 140, where he looked more solid on his feet when he was fighting Koltenick and all those other guys, Demetri Salita, until he got in the ring with Danny Garcia and got himself knocked out again. He looked pretty solid, and moving up to welterweight and putting another 7 pounds on his frame, he looked very, very comfortable, very solid on his feet. He did get hit with a couple of shots where it looked like he may have been stunned for a second or two in the fight, but one thing he's done very well is carried his punching power up with him. And I was very disappointed. I was very impressed with Khan to an extent, because it's also based on how disappointed I am in Collazo. And I think Collazo's probably kicking himself today at basically the opportunity that was squandered. Not that he'd get the next shot at Mayweather, but he would definitely put himself in line for a big fight, either with Mayweather or with Pacquiao or somebody else, or Timothy Bradley or somebody else, if the promotional companies can mesh. With that said, that brought us to the main event, which again, I would have told you that Mayweather was going to win the fight, going away, and maybe even stop Maidana. But something very different happened, didn't it? Not so predictable. And Maidana, despite the payday of his career, came to fight. And kudos to him, because it was a very good performance. And you know what? Double kudos to Mayweather. One, for taking the fight. Two, for basically standing and delivering when put under pressure. And I want to take a little bit of a sidebar here with Mayweather, because I've been very hard on him over the years. And I think in the past few years, since he signed his contract with Showtime, and come out of his retirement, and he's kind of become more stabilized in his promotional realm, and his fighting on a regular basis, whether it's even only twice a year. I think he's basically gotten to a level where fighters like Sugar Ray Leonard, or fighters like Marvin Hagler, or fighters like, not that he's in their class of ability, I'm not trying to say that, but to their importance to the sport, that I've started thinking to myself, especially all these fights, whether it's with Canelo, Guerrero, I'll throw that one out, but Victor Ortiz, and several others, Mosley, that it's not that or the collective conscious and his fans, I'm speaking to Mayweather's fans, aren't watching to see if he's going to win or lose. I'm more watching him now to see how he's going to solve puzzles. That a challenge is thrown at him, whether it's a 170-something pound junior middleweight that's going to outweigh him and definitely be bigger and stronger, how he's going to solve these puzzles. And Maidana offered a far different challenge to him than Alvarez did. And with that said, looking back on the fight, I don't need to recap it round by round, but I'm going to draw some parallels, because I almost couldn't breathe watching the first round of the fight, because I was watching what Maidana was doing, kept absolutely true to his word, which I didn't believe he was going to. I thought, he's going to show up his payday, put forth an effort, and then maybe, Mayweather would pull away from him after 4 rounds, like he did Zab Judah, basically. But I was almost breathless at the end of the first round, because for the first time in a long time, those fists of Maidana, or a Mayweather opponent, were actually landing on rib cage and on the side of his head every so often. And the one thing to take away from this fight, for those of you, I've been reading a lot of different posts that people put underneath articles, whether it's on ESPN or USA Today and this and that, and people are arguing who won the fight. Look, I'm okay if all 3 judges score the fight 115-113 for Mayweather. That's kind of the way I had it, okay? And I will say this about the scoring. It was atrocious. And it draws parallel to the first Jose Luis Castillo fight, because that's the fight most of us, including myself, think that Castillo won. And with this said, if you look at the judges scoring in that fight, they had it like 117-110, or there were points deducted from both of them, but they had it like 9 rounds to 3 for Mayweather and 8 rounds to 4 for Mayweather, and there's no way in hell that fight was 8 rounds to 4 for either guy. And it's the same thing with this one, and I'll give credit to Al Bernstein and Paulie Malignaggi and the Showtime crew, basically saying they don't know what the judges were watching, because there's no way you can get to 9 rounds to 3 for either fighter in this fight, and there's no way you can, technically I think you can get to 8 rounds to 4 for either fighter. I will say this in defense of Mayweather, though: the rounds that he won, specifically like the 7th and 9th rounds, it was no contest from start to finish. I mean, I felt he won those rounds and Maidana took him off. And there's a couple of other ones sprinkled in there like that, which brings Mayweather's no-brainer total to 4 rounds in the bank. With Maidana, a lot of the rounds were close, where he either started strong or nothing happened for the first half of the round, and he basically carried the middle of the round, and they could have swung either way. But I will say this: as I was getting back to the first round and basically watching it and hardly being able to catch my breath, because I thought to myself, this could be the watershed moment that he upends the apple cart. And the thing was, he couldn't sustain it, and that was the thing. I mean, so much effort was put into those first 4 or 5 rounds by Maidana that he couldn't sustain it over 12 rounds. Now, all credit due to Mayweather, because he was sinking some serious body shots into Maidana's body, where Amir Khan showed Maidana don't like it to the body. And Mayweather caught Maidana with some wicked shots to the head, which had him thinking, and it almost looked to me in the middle of the fight that Maidana didn't want to risk getting hit by surprise anymore, because he picked and chose his spots to attack. Now, that's with exception to the 12th round, where he just drew all caution to the wind and attacked Mayweather. Mayweather,
'Mayweather,
you know, felt he had the fight won and just did everything to neutralize Maidana. But, you know, Mayweather, felt he had the fight won and just did everything to neutralize Maidana. But, you know, Mayweather, felt he had the fight won and just did everything to neutralize Maidana. But A lot of people are up in arms thinking that Maidana won the fight. Look, all I'm going to say is this. If they gave Maidana the fight, you'd have arguing from the Mayweather side that would be justified. If Mayweather won the fight 115, 113 on all three judges' scorecards, nobody would be crying about anything. I think that the old adage where you kind of have to take a champion's title, the left side of the screen, the A-list fighter was Mayweather, and in my opinion, you got to do a little bit more, just a little bit more than what Maidana did to convince me that you really dominated or took the fight. The highlight punches were landed by Mayweather, but the bruising, crushing shots to the body. Look, here's the thing for all the Mayweather fans out there that are going to argue, yo, look, he won hands down this that. BS. This is the first time I've watched a Floyd Mayweather fight where the opponent consistently landed double-digit number of punches in all 12 rounds of the fight. That's the most serious indicator now that even though it doesn't look like Mayweather's slipping, it's just by a hair. It's just one little thing like that's starting this father time thing happening. Because again, never before, and you know, Maidana is not what the what I call the uppity A-class golf boneheads would call a swing genie. A swing genie is basically with what I call the aristocratic idiots that analyze golf. Use a derogatory term towards somebody who really isn't that good at golf. They'll say he's not exactly a swing genie, and Maidana is not exactly a swing genie. He's unorthodox. Teddy Atlas the night before had claimed that Maidana might win by upset because of these roundhouse wide punches, and it almost came to fruition. But the thing that really surprised me was late in the fight, Mayweather had started timing and becoming very leery of the way that Maidana was attacking, coming over the top, either with his left hand or he jab a couple of times, step to the side, bend his knees like Malinaji was saying, and launch an overhand right. He did something strange, and I can't remember whether it was the 10th round or the 11th round, where he drew a couple of jabs, and the two of them came together, and Mayweather, I think, thought he was going to come over the top of the right hand, and he launched a straight right hand. And I think if there was ever a time in the fight that Mayweather looked like he was stunned, it was more of a surprise type of thing. And I thought to myself, when I was watching, I was like, why doesn't Garcia tell him that, he's gotten Mayweather, defensive for these, what I call outside the periphery shots. Why doesn't he just start shooting shots up the middle? And I think they'll look back at the tape of the fight, or the recording, and say to themselves, there were adjustments that Maidana could have made to pull the fight out. Again, I thought Mayweather won the fight 7 rounds to 5, or maybe 6-5-1. I mean, a lot of rounds, again, and I don't like this notion that, fights can't be scored even, or rounds can't be scored even, because I think there were a lot of rounds in this fight that could have been scored even. But, would I like to see a rematch? Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a rematch. I don't know how much different it would go. There was controversy that I'm sure most of you are screaming at your computer right now, saying why haven't you brought this up about the 10-ounce gloves? Look, my thing is this: if the fight's at 147 pounds or under, they should be using 8-ounce gloves, and I think that did help Mayweather in 2 ways. One, it protected his hands because he would have probably broke his hands on Maidana's head at one point. And 2, it obviously took away from Maidana's, ability to put power on Mayweather. But if I would have done a preview show, I would have also told you this: too much was being made of Maidana's power being one-punch knockout power. I don't believe it is. I think it's definitely stunning, crushing power, as Adrian Broner will attest to. But the thing is, Mayweather's been hit by far heavier hitters than Maidana. So at no point in the fight was I ever expecting Mayweather to be like, jelly-legged or anything like that, because he has shown that he can take any single punch from any single fighter of all 45 different people he had fought before this. The thing is, I'm sure today, if you're close to Mayweather or you know him, he'll tell you he knows he was in a fight on Saturday night. I think that's going to about wrap it up for this show. Again, I apologize to all of you who've been with me from the get-go. I just, my interest, has just waned with, again, the predictability of what's been going on. And hopefully things are going to change, and we can, get back to being, more on the edge of our seats like I was on Saturday night, and not knowing what's going to happen once it gets underway. But, things are the way they are for a reason, and it's because, again, dating back since the 1970s or 80s, two promoters have basically, one or two promoters have had a stranglehold on boxing. Either Don King did it in the 80s, or the Duvas in the early 90s, and now it's, Arum and, top-ranking Golden Boy. And, whether or not it's going to make things better if they work together, I can't see it not working out. And that brings us to what's next for Mayweather, what's next for Pacquiao with him beating Timothy Bradley. I think that the Maidana fight, if anything, would definitely embolden the Pacquiao supporters. Because when I watched Pacquiao fight Bradley, I thought to myself, look, I mean, he's going to get picked apart by Mayweather. If Bradley can put his, gloves on Pacquiao and catch him, with his feet crossed and things like that. And Pacquiao, as he's aging, is not willing, I think, to throw punches for 3 minutes around like Maidana was doing. But after watching Mayweather, there's been a reversal, is what I'm trying to tell you. It was, 3 or 4 years ago, each one would fight and post, an astounding victory that the other one would one up the next time they fought, swaying my opinion and public opinion of who would win the fight. Now what's happening is you've had one stellar performance and another stellar performance. And I guess it was 3 or 4 years ago, I would think, well, after seeing Pacquiao knock out Hatton, I'd be like, oh man, I mean, I think he maybe take Mayweather. And then watching Mayweather, dominate Mosley and say, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. But now it's like, watch Pacquiao against Bradley, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know. I don't think he's going to get picked apart. And I watch Pacquiao, what's his name, Mayweather against Maidana, and think, oh well, if the Pacquiao of old shows up, and that's the Mayweather we have now, who knows? But styles make fights, and I think we're almost to the point where that fight doesn't matter anymore, because I think their best days are behind both of them, but not that far behind both of them, if you get what I'm saying. And I was watching an interview on ESPN with Paulie Malignaggi via Skype with one of the what do you call it, the ESPN guys, it wasn't Brian Kenny, it was one of the other guys, maybe it was Campbell, I don't know, and he was basically, Malignaggi was brash enough to say that, Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather was basically a one-sided mismatch, and it was basically that Pacquiao-Maidana would be an even fight. And I'm thinking to myself, you're nuts. I mean, you're absolutely crazy. Now, maybe he knows something I don't know, but I don't think that Pacquiao is going to fare any less against Mayweather than Maidana did. I think he's got the better ability to deliver power. I mean, but neither here nor there. I think what it does is this performance by Maidana, and this test at Mayweather, the way Mayweather solved the Maidana puzzle. This theme of this, or I should say the lesson in this that I'm trying to convey, is that maybe there is more to that fight again than there was as everybody was writing it off. And that's all. I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully I can get something back up here again. We're working on 30 minutes here as I've just rambled on. And just tell me what your thoughts are, whether it's about the UFC and the uncertainty and the excitement of not knowing what's going to happen compared to boxing, or what you think about the Mayweather-Maidana fight in the future. Because I'd pay to see them do it again, Mayweather and Maidana. I'd really love to see them go down to Luna Park, Buenos Aires, and have the fight, to be honest with you. Because the support that Maidana got here was incredible. And the support Mayweather got here was incredible, too. That's going to do it for the show. I'll see you on the other side.